Okay, this is from Geometry, Chapter 5. This is the practice for lesson 6.5, and this is question 4. So if you want to figure out what this hypotenuse is of your triangle, and you've got these two lengths on here, you're going to have to use a Pythagorean theorem. And probably the reason you're having trouble at first is because this has a square root in it, which is difficult to work with. So I'll show you how it works out. All right. The Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And if you look up here, all the different pieces, this is my a squared. This number is my b squared, because it's my other leg. And my c squared is the part I don't know. So I'm going to put those two numbers into my equation. So this becomes 5 squared plus my 10 to the square root of 2 squared, and that's equal to c squared. Now if I'm doing this, you know how to do the first part. 5 squared is what? 25. But this part is difficult to do if you don't know how to use square roots. Now, to kind of understand how this works, remember that 5 times 5, I'll do this over here, 5 times 5 is equal to 25. And that's what 5 squared is. 5 squared is 5 times 5. But here, 10 times the square root of 2 squared just means 10 times the square root of 2 times 10 times the square root of 2. It means those two things multiplied together. And if I do that, I can multiply these two number pieces, not inside the radical, but outside of it, and that's just 100. And then I multiply that times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. And here's where you have to remember some of the rules about radicals. The square root of 2 times the square root of 2 could also be written as the square root of 2 times 2 inside of a radical. Well, that's just the square root of 4. What is the square root of 4? 2. So this is just basically 2. This 2 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 ends up being the same thing as 2. So my 100 is the same. I'll fill that back in. So what's 100 times 2? Well, that's just 200. So I can put that 200 in this place. This is 200. And that is equal to c squared. Once I've got that, all it is just adding the two things together, which is 225, and that's equal to c squared. And then my last step is just to figure out what c is. So that means I take the square root of both sides. So take square root of 225, and that's equal to the square root of c squared. Those cancel out here, and the square root of 225 is 15. So 15 is equal to c. And there's your answer. Does that make sense?